Did you know that assisted suicide, properly known as medical aid in dying, is only legal in 11 states in the US, plus Washington, D.C.? But according to deathwithdignity.org, there are 17 other states that are currently considering making medical aid in dying legal. Because of my extensive research, I believe that medical aid in dying should be made legal in all 50 states. It is important to know about medical aid in dying because it reduces the stigma and opens up the conversation on the topic. Today we are going to learn about what medical aid in dying is, why it is important, and talk about some counterarguments. In an article from the Britannica, the New York State Bar Association defines medical aid in dying as when a terminally ill, mentally competent adult patient who is likely to die within 6 months takes prescribed medicines, which must be self-administered to end suffering and achieve a peaceful death. This is different from euthanasia because in medical aid in dying, you must self-administer the drugs yourself. In the US, laws allowing medical aid in dying are referred to as death with dignity laws. This is because this was the phrase that was originated in Oregon in 1997 when the first law allowing this was passed. All the other laws and bills that are written in the US about medical aid in dying are modeled after this original law. Having the option of medical aid in dying respects patient autonomy and relieves their suffering. It also allows a patient to hasten their death in a peaceful, humane way in a dignified manner. Autonomy is the governance over one's own actions, and when this is brought up in a healthcare setting, this is referring to what medical interventions a patient does and does not want to participate in. Something people may not consider when talking about medical aid in dying is that it can be a meaningful choice and option for those who are also surrounding the patients, like their family and friends. According to an article in the American Psychological Association by Afua Ando, involving family and friends can be a meaningful moment and almost a ritual for them to say a proper goodbye. One great example of patient autonomy is from 2014 with Brittany Maynard, who is a former Bay Area resident who was only 29 years old when she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer and given a prognosis of only 6 months to live. After research and an initial surgery that did not work, Brittany realized that there was no cure. She considered palliative care, but realized that at the end of her life, her mental state would be affected, and she didn't want that. She decided that death with dignity was the best option for her. Because it was not legal in California at the time, her and her husband moved to Oregon. This is a quote from her. "I've had the medication for weeks. I am not suicidal. If I were, I would have consumed the medication long ago. I do not want to die, but I am dying, and I want to die on my own terms." In an article she wrote herself, Brittany described having a sense of peace when she received the medication and was able to live out the rest of her days. She died in 2014 and was an essential advocate for California passing their own death with dignity law. Some may say that medical aid in dying is a slippery slope and is promoting making euthanasia legal in the United States. But according to David R. Grube, who is a medical school professor and a retired doctor from Philomath, Oregon, which is the state where medical aid in dying first became legal, more people have not died from the law, but fewer have suffered. This means that the medication and receiving the medication has brought peace to the patient and those who have already had the prognosis of 6 months left to live. There is also no evidence of the promotion of euthanasia in the US, and it is not going to be made legal anytime. Some may say that those suffering from depression or other psychiatric conditions will take advantage of the medical aid in dying laws. But there are safeguarded steps that healthcare professionals need to go through with their patient while going through this process. According to the Academy of Aid in Dying Medicine, which is a main source for clinicians who are working with patients who are considering medical aid in dying, these steps are that they have to live in a state where this is legal. They have to be deemed capable of making and communicating their own healthcare decisions. A family member or friend cannot be a proxy for them if they're unable to communicate. They have to have a diagnosis of 6 months to live from a healthcare professional, and they have to be capable of self-administering the medication at the end of their life. Healthcare professionals do not take this process lightly, and also, if a healthcare professional does not want to go forward with their patient in this process, they are not required to. After extensive research, I believe that medical aid in dying should be made legal in all 50 states. Today, we learned about what medical aid in dying is, why it is important, and also talked about some counterarguments. After watching my presentation, I implore you to go to deathwithdignity.org. They have a map of the United States, and you can click around each state and see what their progress is with their Death with Dignity laws. You can see if it's legal, if it's under consideration, or if it's under a threat of being repealed. Since it is up to the states to legalize medical aid in dying and not a federal decision, you need to contact your governor. You can write to them or call to them to urge them to sign and pass the bill to make medical aid in dying legal in their state. Since it's legal in California, if you or someone you know, a friend or a family member, lives in another state, urge them to be an advocate for this cause.